Hi everyone, I'm back ready to read chapter 2 of Socks with you. And I've been loving the pictures that you've been emailing to me. I was looking at them over the weekend, and unfortunately I'm having a little bit of a printer issue right now where it's not printing what I'm sending to it. So I'm going to work on that so that I can continue to share the pictures you're sending. But until then, we'll continue reading together. So this is chapter 2, The Bricker's Other Pet. The Brickers drove Socks to a shabby house with a weedy lawn, a fragrant lemon bush, and geraniums growing in the earth, comfortable for a kitten to dig in. They made a bed for Socks from a carton and an old sweatshirt and placed it in the laundry room beside his dish. They did not object when he chose instead to sleep on the couch in the living room. They fed him canned and dry cat foods and brought raw meat for him. They wiped his paws on the good bath towel whenever he came in with wet feet, because they had not been married long enough to have an old bath towel. Oh my goodness, friends, look who is joining our read aloud right now. He must know that we are reading a story about cats. This is the famous Louie that you've heard so much about. Yes, I think he's enjoying our story too, huh? Aren't you, Louie? Oh, he's always full of love. All right, I'm going to put you down so I can finish reading, okay? Look at that, friends. Special guests, huh? They had not been married long enough to have an old bath towel, and when the winter rains came, they supplied him with a pan of kitty litter. The Brickers talked to their cat. "Socks, you're getting a lot of service around here," said Mr. Bricker, as he left his studies to get down on his hands and knees to retrieve a ping-pong ball Socks had batted under the chest drawer in the living room. There's actually a picture of Mr. Bricker trying to find Socks' toy. I do that all the time in the house with Louie. "Such silky fur," Mrs. Bricker spoke in her just for Socks voice, as she left off typing to press her cheek against his coat and let her long hair fall all over him like a curtain. Socks's throat throbbed with purrs. He was especially happy when he could interrupt her work on the papers that she typed for students. Her typewriter was his rival for attention, and Socks did not like rivals. The only real unpleasantness in Socks's new life was an unhappy day spent in the veterinarian's hospital, which was soon forgotten. Socks thrived. His eyes changed from blue to the color of new leaves. He grew into a sleek cat, affectionate towards his loving owners, but firm about getting his own way. He was the center of the Bricker household, and he was content. Then a strange thing happened. Mrs. Bricker's lap began to shrink. One day, Socks was perfectly comfortable nesting on her knees, and the next day, he did not have quite enough room. Each time he napped on her lap, he had to curl himself into a tighter ball, and his tail wrapped more closely around his body. Finally, one evening, when trying to find room to rest his chin, he lost his balance and fell to the floor with a thump. Both Brickers burst out laughing. Socks was insulted. He turned his back and twitched his tail back and forth across the carpet to show his displeasure. "Poor Socks," said Mrs. Bricker between giggles. "You lost your dignity, didn't you?" "Come on, old boy," coaxed Mr. Bricker. "Try my lap for size." He moved his chair away from his desk to make room. The tail twitched. The Brickers would have to work harder before Socks would forgive them. Owners must be disciplined. If they really wanted to be forgiven, they would have to tempt him with a snack from the refrigerator. Instead of going to the kitchen, Mrs. Bricker suddenly said in an urgent voice, "Bill, it's time to go." "Are you sure?" Mr. Bricker's voice registered in excitement. Or was it worry or joy or everything all at once? Socks waited. These people had to learn. "I'm positive," said Mrs. Bricker in a small, scared voice. "This is it." With great dignity, Socks stalked them behind one of the furniture pieces, the chair with the loopy upholstery. He placed his forepaws on the chair, arched his back, and pulled. Rip, rip, rip. There. The Brickers gave Socks attention, but not in the way he had expected. He found himself snatched up, carried down the hall, and tossed into the dark laundry room beside his pan of kitty litter. The door shut after him. "Sorry, old boy," said Mr. Bricker, as he gave the door an extra push to make sure it was latched. After a moment of shocked silence, Socks let out a yowl of rage and waited for release. He could hear the Brickers talking in quick, anxious voices. He could hear the whirl of the telephone dial, but he did not hear anyone coming down the hall to let him out. Socks meowed his loudest, crossest meow. Footsteps hurried, the front door slammed. Out on the driveway, the old station wagon started, died, started again, and drove away. The house was silent. So was Socks. After months of catnip and service and attention, to be treated like this. In the days that followed, Mr. Bricker dumped food into Socks's dish early in the morning before he left the house, and again at night when he returned. But in between, Socks was alone. He waited on the windowsill. He slept. He honed his claws on the forbidden chair, although the sport was gone. The ringing of the telephone made him anxious when no one was home to answer. The buzzing of the doorbell frightened him, so that he hid under the bed. But he need not have bothered now. No one came to open the door. Socks lost interest in food. His ping-pong ball no longer amused him. Without love, he was bewildered and dejected. Then late one morning, Socks was roused from a doze by the slam of the station wagon door on the driveway, and the sound of the voices of both of his owners. With glad meows, he sprang from the couch. As soon as the door opened, Socks was outside, his front paws against Mrs. Bricker's thigh, stretching up to be petted. A light breeze ruffled his fur, and spring sunshine drew the fragrance from the lemon blossoms. Life was good again. "Did you miss me, Socks?" Mrs. Bricker stooped to rub his ears. "Were you lonesome without me?" she asked. Socks's throat pulsated with purrs. He rubbed against her legs back and forth, round and round, as she entered the house. He could not get enough petting to satisfy his pent-up loneliness. "I missed you too," said Mrs. Bricker in such an understanding voice that Socks felt he must take advantage of this. With a hopeful meow, he started towards the kitchen, paused, and looked back to encourage her to follow him to the refrigerator. Until that moment, he had been so happy to see his family that he had not noticed the bundle in Mr. Bricker's arms. Socks hesitated. Which was more important? A tidbit from the refrigerator, or his right to investigate everything that came into the house? Curiosity won, and he turned back. "See what we've brought?" said Mr. Bricker. A smacking noise came from inside the bundle. Instantly, Socks was alert. There was something alive in there. His spine prickled, and he paused to sniff curiously. Mrs. Bricker folded back the blanket, and Mr. Bricker leaned over so Socks could see. He saw a creature with a small, wrinkled, furless face, a sight that had made his hair stand on end. His eyes grew large, and he backed away. Whatever the thing was, he did not trust it. There's a picture of Socks looking at what Mr. Bricker is holding. So we're actually going to stop there for today. And I want you to be thinking, and maybe it could even be part of your picture, could be your prediction as to what you think Mr. Bricker's holding. And maybe how Socks is feeling right now. So that's it for today. Feel free to send me your pictures, and we'll be back for more tomorrow. Take care, friends.